Hi, Yuksel. How are you doing?
Uh,
Welcome
Sorry.
to our event. Yeah, and we are very glad to see you in our event, and hope we will listen and we will have a great talk with your presentation.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's how has it been going? I haven't been able to watch it because of the time difference. But how has it been going? Are you having a good time?
Yeah, sure. So right now in Tashkent, it's like 12:44
Uh,
a.m. It's in the morning, and yeah. So we can start because your time. We have left like a couple of seconds. No worries. So again, I will introduce you. Yuksel Tolun is a Google developer expert, and his topic will be intro to action builders. Welcome.
Thank you. Let me just get this to present to view and share my screen with you. Okay, got it to full screen. Yeah. Welcome everyone. Today we will be talking about actions on Google, as you might see on my T-shirt. I will talk about this new tool specifically. It's called the Actions Builder. If you ever developed anything with Actions on Google before, we were using Dialogflow for NLP. It was a good tool. I love Dialogflow. It was the reason I became interested in Actions on Google in the first place, because I was using Dialogflow much before then it was called Dialogflow. When I started using it, it was called API AI, and I loved it. It was a good tool. But for the purposes of developing a voice application, there were some places it lacked. It wasn't bad, but it could be better. And Actions Builder came to the rescue. We now have a new tool to develop actions, and I'm so eager to talk about it. So let's jump right in. But first, let's talk about me, because let's be honest, that's my favorite subject to talk about. My name is Yuksel. I'm a lawyer. I live in Turkey. I'm a lawyer by training, but I do a lot of software development in my free time. I love developing software, and specifically, I love developing voice applications. And this passion actually led me to share what I know with communities around me, and specifically Google developer communities. And that led me to become a Google developer expert on Google Assistant. Now, first, let's talk about why we want to talk to computers. It's not a new concept. It's not something that we came up with in the recent years. We wanted to talk to computers for a very, very long time. As you can see, these are all images from our imagination, basically, because that's what fiction is, our imagination collectively. And these are all talking computers, and only one of them is a murderer. So that's a good, that's plus. And now that we have talking computers, we're loving it. This graph shows the adoption rate, adoption speed of different types of technologies in the US market. And as you can see, as time goes by, as technology develops, people actually are more eager to try new technology, adopt new technology. They're faster to adopt. And that reflected on the smart speakers, which are main platforms that these voice assistants live. And you can see some here. I have two right there. And we have been adopting them almost as fast as we have adopted smartphones. And it's good. It means that we love to talk to our computers and we want to do it more. But for consumers to be able to talk to their computers, us developers have to develop computers that can be talked to, that can understand what the user is saying, and that can respond accordingly. Today, we're going to talk about one way of doing that. And let's take a look at what users are doing with their voice integrated devices or voice activated devices. Well, most of them are listening to music, which is basically what I do every single day. And I ask regular questions like most of these users, like alarms, traffic, directions, and weather. And as you can see, a lot of the users are actually trying to have fun with these devices as well. This data actually indicates that users are trying to integrate the voice devices into their lives more and more. And the fact that they're trying to have fun with them actually shows us that they love them. Now, where does Google Assistant fit into this picture? Because you might be thinking, well, it's okay that we have, voice-activated devices. It's cool that we can talk to computers now. But what can we do as developers? how can we improve Google Assistant? Isn't Google Assistant just a virtual assistant that's introduced by Google in 2016 and that can give quirky answers to your questions? And yes, it is. But it's also a platform that you can develop your actions, your voice applications on. And it matters for developers because it's a platform that is widely available in 80 countries in 19 languages. You can use Google Assistant on more than 1 billion different devices, and the Assistant directory has over 1 million actions in it. So there is a development ecosystem right here that is actually untapped. I mean, 1 million sounds a lot, and in terms of voice applications, it is, but consider how many mobile applications in the Play Store or in App Store. There is a huge untapped potential here. And today we're going to talk about how you can start learning to tap it, basically. To understand actions on Google, we have to understand what actually is Google Assistant. Google Assistant consists of 3 sub-elements, if you will. The first is the Google Assistant. That's the persona that Google developed. That's the one that gives quirky answers to your questions. And that's the one that we really can't interrupt or interfere as a developer. The second sub-element is the devices that are Google Assistant enabled. These devices are the ones that we talk to, like our smart speakers, or they can even be the ones that you make using Assistant SDK. You can make your own Google Assistant enabled devices. But the third piece of the puzzle, which is what we're going to be talking about today, is Actions on Google. And this is the platform that we develop our own voice applications on. And we do it by using Actions Builder as of lately. Actions Builder is an easy-to-use, web-based integrated development environment in the Actions console. Being web-based actually is a huge advantage. Dialogflow was also web-based, and it gave newcomers a much easier time because you don't have to install a lot of software. You don't have to, build an entire development environment on your computer. You can just jump into your browser and start developing. And it's actually really fast in terms of both prototyping and actual development. Some of the other benefits of Actions Builder include lower latency and the visual representation of the dialogue tree, so that as you're developing, you can see where you can take the dialogue, and depending on what the user says or does, how the dialogue will branch out. You can see it visually, which is a huge improvement over what Dialogflow had, which was just a list, streaming down. It was hard to read, to say the least. And another huge benefit over Dialogflow is that Actions Builder lives in the Actions console, so you don't have to jump back and forth between Dialogflow console and Actions console. You don't have to, log into Dialogflow separately, because during workshops, one of the mistakes that newcomers does is that they use one account for Actions console and they use another account for Dialogflow, and that's why the two agent and the action can't connect, and that was a huge problem in the workshops because that would set you back and you would have to do everything you've done until that point all over again. Now we don't have to deal with all of that. We have an Actions Builder right in the console. It's all in one place. It's amazing. Even the simulator is web-based, so you don't even have to have an Actions enabled, assistant enabled device. You can just open the simulator and test your action right in the browser, right on the same page. It's amazing. We also have Actions SDK now, and Actions Builder and Actions SDK are actually based on the same technology. Actions SDK is a file-based representation of all your Actions project. This means whatever you do in Actions Builder will have a file representation. And thanks to this, we can technically use version control now. And that is amazing because if you've ever done anything with Dialogflow with more than one person, with a friend or with a colleague or with a team, it was a huge pain to get the Dialogflow agent exported as a zip file and upload it to GitHub. And the next person who will start working on the same thing would have to download the latest version of the action or agent and upload it to Dialogflow and import it into the action. It was like an extra step, or extra even 2 steps to use version control. Thankfully, we now have a full file-based representation of Actions projects. Now, developing voice applications comes with its own vocabulary. We need to learn some new terminology and some new concepts. They're not hard concepts, based to say the least, but like we still have to be familiar with some of these concepts. And even if you are an experienced voice developer, even if you develop something with Dialogflow, you might still want to check this out because Actions Builder comes with some new concepts and renamed some of them as well. First concept I want to talk about are types. Types, formerly known as entities, are the parameters in a user's conversation. For example, if you have a food ordering action, the type of food the user wants to order is the type in that conversation. That's called a dish type or a food type. Basically, you would define these as a list, and whenever user uses one of these, that parameter would be extracted from the conversation and delivered to your webhook or wherever you want to use it separately, so that you would have an easier time to understand what the user is trying to do. As I said before, this was called entities in Dialogflow, but types in Actions Builder. Intents were the main building blocks of an action in Dialogflow. Intents are goals the user is trying to achieve with semantically similar sentences. Users might not always say the same thing to get the same thing done. I might, if I want to continue with the food ordering example, if I want to order food, I would say, give me some food, send me some food, deliver me some food. I want takeout. I could say all of these things to do the exact same thing. And this is what an intent is. I would have to, as a developer, bundle these as one intent so that I can catch them when a user says something similar to one of these statements. And intents have training phrases, which are phrases that I input as a developer as an example of what the users might say to get to this intent or to trigger this intent. And the computer learns from these training phrases and basically matches what the user says with these training phrases and triggers the intent and does whatever I want it to do. And this is the brand new concept that Actions Builder included. It's called scenes. These are now the main building blocks of actions, not intents, because a scene might have multiple intents. What is a scene? A scene is an individual state of your conversation. That is an easier way to organize your conversation in logical pieces. Think of it like a play. We have scenes in the play to convey our message to the audience in a more organized way. So these are what scenes are. Think of your conversation as a play, and your scenes are the individual scenes in that play. The cool fact about scenes is that they execute in a loop, so that until that scene is completed, until a set condition is fulfilled, that scene will play over and over again to make it easier for developers to get the job done without actually having to write a lot of code or having to do the same thing over and over again. This is the anatomy of a scene. This is the execution life cycle. This is how a scene borns and dies, basically. And all of these events will be covered in the next parts of this presentation. But I just put this here because I think it's so cool to see the loop in action. Scenes enters the scene, the user enters the scene, the conditions are checked, and slots are checked based on what, if the slot is empty or fulfilled. I'll just put my light like this, yes. Based on the slots status, we could have prompts, get the user input. We could transition into another scene or loop back here, or we could even go to a webhook call, basically. So yeah, I think this is a really cool loop. Let's go over the individual states one by one. On enter is the only stage of the scene that isn't a part of the loop. So on enter event triggers only once, and that's when the user comes into the scene the first time. On the other executions of the loop, we won't have the on enter triggered. As you can see here, you see it loops back to condition stage of the scene. It's not on enter. And what it does is that it triggers an event that I can either give a prompt or trigger some webhook. It triggers an event that I can set an action to when the user enters into that stage of conversation. Conditions is the first stage of the scene loop, and it basically is a set of statements that are checked. They can be about session, the user, or the slot data. And if the condition is false, that loop will execute, that scene will execute in a loop. And when the conditions are met, it will either transition or trigger a webhook. We'll talk about what you can do when the loop is completed in a moment. Slot filling. Now, I've talked about types before, and I said that types are parameters in your conversation. Now, slots are a representation of these types in the conversation or in that scene. For example, continuing with the food ordering example, you might have more than one types that you want to get from the user. You might have more than one slots to be filled in the conversation. You might have one drink slot and you might have one food slot. And if a user comes out and says, I want to get food, the two slots are empty. We don't know what food they want, and we don't even know what drink they want. So right now we need to fill those slots. I would have a condition checking if these slots are filled, and if they are not, I would move to the slot filling stage of this conversation. And basically, the scene would select the first empty slot in the conversation and ask the corresponding question to user. If a user comes out and says, I want to get food, I have two slots empty, I get the scene picks the food slot and asks the user what kind of food you want delivered. And the user gives a food name, for example, a hamburger or a salad, and I get this name, and now I have only one slot empty, and then conversation loops back, picks this slot and asks the corresponding question and asks the user what kind of drink you want. And when I get the drink name, now I have two slots fulfilled, and now I can move to whatever I wanted to do on the next phase of the conversation. Now I got my slots filled. I'm done with the scene. There are no more inputs that I want to get from the user. I want to do something with this input that I got. What can I do, or what should I do? First things first, I could transition into another scene. Maybe there are more information I want to collect. Maybe, for example, for food delivering, maybe I don't have the user's address, or I want to confirm their order. Now I could transition into another scene and loop that scene until I get what I wanted from the user. Or I could give them a prompt. If I have everything, if I think I have everything I need, I could give them a response. This response might be a simple response, which is just a speech and text, or a rich response, which are cards. It could be a visual selection response, which would enable users to select what they want to do on a touch interface, but these are only good for screen input available devices. I could return a media response, which is a media and a control to the user. Or I could send in an interactive canvas, take control of the entire screen of the user, and basically develop games or storytelling adventures on the user's assistant-enabled device. Or more likely scenario is that once I have all the information I need from the user, I want to trigger a webhook. Webhooks are actually endpoints of your application, probably your backend application. It's probably a REST API, and you want to trigger a webhook with the data you got from the conversation. Again, with the food ordering example, if I have the user's order and their address, now what I want to do, what I would do if I were a mobile developer, I would just go ahead and trigger a webhook and send that data to my database so that whoever is handling the orders will see it on their screen, right? So this is what I'm going to do with the actions. When I get all that information from the scene or from the action, I will trigger a webhook and send that data over to that endpoint and do whatever operation I want to do with that data, and possibly send a confirmation or approval message to user. This is how you develop a webhook using the Node.js SDK. As you can see, it's not a complex SDK. You basically create a handle called rich response, which will be tied to a specific action or an event in the actions builder. and you add pieces of responses to conversation. Obviously, if you want to do any other operation, you would do them here. And you add these pieces to the conversation. You add these prompts to the conversation. This is a simple response, and this is a card response, which is a rich response. Sorry. And now that we have our action, now that we have developed a couple scenes and we get what we want from the user, and we trigger a webhook and use that data in our business, now what? Now what can we do to either improve our actions or to make it known to a lot of people? What we can do is that we can publish it. Actions on Google have its own assistant directory, which is where the actions live. This is a place where users can rate your action, discover them, or comment about them. As I said before, there are over 1 million actions right now in the assistant directory. And I know it sounds like a lot of actions, but the fact that mobile application marketplaces have billions of applications on them makes assistant directory a place where you have a shot of being discovered on accident, even on accident. Or you can get trending very much easier, not very easily, but a lot easier than any other marketplace, any other application marketplace. So, and if you're a user, you don't have to develop voice applications. If you're a user, you can just go to the assistant directory and check out these cool actions other people are developing and use them for entertainment or any other purposes. Or as a developer, if you want to move your action or application forward, you can use account linking. Now, account linking is a system that enables the developers to use the same account for the user on web, mobile, and on actions on Google, so that you can know all the information necessary about the user just by signing them in. You wouldn't have to ask them all over again, which is a really cool feature. As a consumer, I really enjoy account linking because it keeps me from writing the same information over and over again. I believe Starbucks used account linking feature and provided users who ordered their coffee through voice assistants or through Google Assistant, and they awarded them with more reward stars. If you've used the mobile application, you'll know they have stars. They awarded basically free drinks to people who used their account on a Google device. So account linking is cool. You can build a lot of marketing opportunities on it as well. And you can make money off of your actions. You can either sell physical goods or you can sell digital goods through your action, and you can make money. And this process was not easy, nor was it pleasant until last week, because users would have to go to their phone and type in their password or touch the fingerprint sensor, even if the order was for $0. And it was really not the best experience when it comes to making a purchase, because we're already very aware of any dangers. We're already scared while we're doing purchases online. And the fact that I start the conversation on a voice-enabled device and it asks me to go and type my password on a mobile device, it would lose all the users on the last step. But last week, they announced that we can finally use voice match to confirm purchases. So any purchase would be able to complete it on a strictly voice environment. And that's really cool. And that I think it will increase the amount of users making purchases on Google Assistant, which will increase your profit as an action developer, which is awesome. And interactive canvas. This is one of the coolest things that you can do with actions on Google, because unlike simple responses or rich responses, interactive canvas gives you the control of the entire screen, which is really cool and which enables you to develop games and full screen storytelling or educational applications right now. And you develop these with the technologies you already know and love, which are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now, I know you might be thinking, how can we develop games with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? But believe me, it can be done. People have been doing this long before Actions on Google came around. And there are a lot of cool JavaScript libraries to help you visualize whatever you want to visualize or help you create animations. There is a JavaScript library that enables you to create fake 3D animations, basically 2D objects that can seem like 3D because of all the math that goes behind the scenes. And there are a lot of cool JavaScript libraries. I encourage you to check it out because it's as I said, it's really amazing to be able to talk to a web application and have it, do things on the screen. I believe there's a really good potential with interactive canvas. Now, I'm about done with my presentation, but we have time for questions and answers. If you have any questions about Actions on Google, you can ask them right now, either through comments or by connecting, like that.
Yeah, Yuksel, thank you for your presentation. Hope it was very helpful for our audience. And before getting question from audience, I have a question. So as you know, we have in the market we have like two most popular hardwares. I mean the platforms. One is Google Assistant, and another one is from Google from Amazon, which is Alexa. And I have a question in development, like for which platform it's easy to develop, and which platform has more features?
I don't think I'm the right person to answer this because even though I have some experience developing with Alexa, developing for Alexa, they're called Alexa skills. My experience with Google Assistant is a lot more. So to me, it's easier to develop with Google Assistant because that's all I've been doing for the past 2 years. But I wouldn't say they're drastically different in terms of difficulty levels because the conversational development is more or less consisting of the same steps. As far as the features, it depends on what you want to do as a developer. They both have the basic functionality. I mean, I don't think anyone is going to run into any issues creating a voice action or voice application in Alexa or Google, and they won't probably have a lot of missing features. But yeah, I don't think that it's a fair comparison when I'm doing it because I have a lot more experience with Google Assistant. Yeah, and sure. But as far as a consumer goes, obviously I'm biased again, but I use Google Home a lot more because of the I think the NLP is a little bit better, but that's just a personal opinion. I don't have any data to process it, but to back it up. But yeah, it's really a matter of what you want to do. And probably as a voice app developer, you want to be on multiple platforms. Like mobile app developers usually develop iOS and Android applications. And so you probably want to be on all voice platforms. And there are actually cross-platform voice application development environments as well. So yeah, it's not a fair comparison, but I enjoy using Google Assistant more.
Yeah, and we have also here use a Google Home Mini. So I think it's more kind of comfortable and easy to use from my perspective, because in the past I also used Alexa for a couple of months, but for me it was Google Home kind of most preferred one. And we have like the question from the audience. You mentioned that we have to build database of inputs. Does Google Actions platform have a pre-made database for different applications?
You don't have to create a database for action because it totally depends on what you need to do with the information you get from the conversation. My example was a food ordering application, and when you're handling an order, you want to get the order into a database so that you can read that database from another application and deliver the food. For example, a user will say, I want a hamburger to my home address. You will get that data, you will put it in a database, and then the person who's going to deliver, who's going to prepare the food will get a message saying that someone ordered a hamburger, and they will prepare it and they will give it to the delivery guy. And this means that you need a database. But in many other cases, for example, one of my most popular actions is an action about Pokemon. It gives you details of Pokemon, and I don't need a database for it because I don't save any data from the user, and all the Pokemon data lives in a JSON file, so I don't need a database. So there aren't any pre-made databases because what kind of database you need, or even if you need a database, will vastly depend on what you're doing with actions from Google, and you probably want to create your own if you need one as well. So no pre-made databases, but you don't need a database for every action.
Yeah, thank you very much. And from my side, how do you monetize your actions? How you can earn from this?
Can you repeat that last part, please?
Yeah, how you can earn from this money? Like, for example, if you do applications, you can put some prepaid ads or something, or you can have like applications which you buy it for actions. How do you do that?
I actually briefly touched on this topic, but basically, you can either sell physical or digital goods. For example, if you have a game on Actions on Google, you can sell episodes of the game, or you can sell power-ups, or you can sell, costumes and other cosmetic digital goods on the game. You can sell subscriptions. Meditation or fitness applications does this. You can sell subscriptions and get paid monthly by the user. Or you can sell physical goods. For example, the food delivery action is a good example of this. You would sell a physical good and get the payment through actions on Google. There are no ads available on the platform right now, so you can't put ads to earn money, but that doesn't mean you can't earn money, because you would probably make more money if you could sell a digital or physical good to the user. So I'm not saying that's the only way of making money on a mobile platform. Obviously, ads make a lot of money on mobile applications, but as far as voice goes, I believe the ads would drastically lessen the user experience. The users would not be happy listening to ads, all the time. I mean, think about it. I mean, even on some visual platforms, they can get annoying really quickly. On voice, that could pile up, because there's this thing what we call is an emotional investment. When a device talks to you, you in your brain think of it like if it's a person. So if there were annoying ads, it will be like your friend telling you all about this cool product they want you to buy right in the middle of a conversation that's not about that product at all. That would not really fit in the current market, but you can still make money by selling physical or digital goods.
Gotcha. Yeah, thank you very much. So it's like listening the Spotify not premium version. If you listen to Spotify, if you don't have subscription, in the middle of the song, you can listen the like ads, like buy this, buy that. So yeah, sure, it will be like bad user experience for people.
But different from Spotify in one way, that we have radio ads for a very long time, so we're not unfamiliar with ads sprinkled between music, but we're not used to ads sprinkled between conversation. I mean, I'm talking to the device and I'm expecting a response, and what I get is an ad. That might be a little bit more frustrating than Spotify. So yeah, I think voice market isn't currently ready for that kind of drastic user experience change, but maybe in the future, I don't know.
Yeah, sure, I agree. So yeah, I see that we don't have any question left from the audience. Thank you very much, Yuksel.
If you put my slide back on, I have one more summary slide so that I can wrap it up. Yep, thank you. Today we talked about Actions Builder and why it's awesome. And to sum up, Actions Builder is a web-based integrated development environment and a simulator that you can use to create actions or develop actions all in one place. It's easier to organize your conversational logic thanks to scenes, and it gives you flexibility and version control thanks to the same technology that powers Actions SDK. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much. So we have
we have one question.
Yeah,
it's a good one. Salvinos asks, in your opinion, which area will voice assistant application the most? I think which area it will be used the most. Yeah, she corrected it. And I actually had a slide about this, but I wasn't sure if it was really interesting. I took it out. It's really ironic that you asked this. So in my opinion, voice assistants will be really popular amongst educational circles because it's a really interactive way of teaching someone. And for example, think about learning a different language. While learning the language, you could listen all you want, you could read all you want, but unless you start writing and unless you start speaking, you're not going to learn as effectively or as fast. And this is basically the same in any topic. So in an interactive environment for education, I think this is where it's going to outshine most of the other technology. And some other platforms include some other areas includes elder care, or because there have been studies about how virtual assistants could be used for people who are having trouble interacting with other technology devices, and how we as developers can cater to their needs easier on voice platforms. There have been studies that shows that. And I think, I mean, this is a little doubtful, but I think the voice games can be really popular if more developers were interested in developing cool voice-based games, because games currently are thought of as video games only, but they're not. I used to play text-based games all the time when internet were new and we didn't have 500 gigabytes of 3D games. And it was a lot of fun. And I think voice games can be fun and very popular in the near future. So yeah, these are the three most effective areas that I think voice will be used. They have another question. They ask, so do you think they can replace teachers? No, I don't think they can replace teachers. I think they can aid teachers. They can help teachers teach more effectively. I mean, I don't think voice assistants will replace anyone anytime soon. I mean, have you talked to one? Hey, they're cool, great, but they're not going to replace me anytime soon, or as a lawyer either. I mean, what I do is just I get questions and I answer them, but a voice assistant is not going to replace me anytime soon. But they won't replace teachers, but they will make teachers' lives a lot easier, and they will make students' life a lot easier. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, sure. I agree.
Thank you for these are great questions.
Yeah. So I see that we don't have left any questions, so we can finish our session. Again, thank you very much, Yuksel, for your time and for your speech. Hope we will see you in our next events in the future.
I'd be really happy. Thanks for having me. Goodbye.